Good afternoon. My name's Tony Ferrari. I'm on Dorset Cabinet, responsible for economic growth with special responsibility for regeneration and development in Weymouth. What I'd like to talk about today is North Quay. It's been a building in Weymouth that hasn't been used for a long time now. Everybody agrees we need to do something about it, but how do we decide what it is that we do with the building? So can I talk about first about what are the important things that we think in terms of how do we make this decision? Clearly the building's got, and the site has a contribution to economic development for Weymouth. Any scheme that we bring forward and all the schemes that we can talk about will have a housing contribution to Weymouth's housing. There's an environmental impact, there's a carbon footprint for the existing building or for new building, and inevitably there's financial benefit for Dorset Council on bringing forward and developing a new scheme. So we have the existing building. The first choice we have to make is, do we demolish and redevelop, or do we leave the existing building in place and refurbish it for residential use? So the first question we need to answer about North Quay is, we have an existing building, do we retain the existing building, convert it to residential use, or do we demolish it and redevelop a new scheme, redeveloping the site? So the first thing we have to ensure that we've got right are the assumptions we're making and when we're doing that comparison. We went out to external architects, and the best proposal we have is for a conversion into flats. North Quay, we can build 56 residential units on the site. It's not terribly material to the carbon footprint of the site, whether we build 56 or more or less. The carbon in the construction is already embedded. The amount of carbon that's produced by the site through normal use is basically governed by the shell of the building, not by what you put inside it. But we put 56 flats in here as the option that we need to compare against in terms of when we're deciding whether to demolish or not. So what's the alternative? We looked at the last scheme that had popular approval across Weymouth, and that was the Pentreath scheme, which came forward 5 years or so ago. And that was for 72 housing units and 4 non-residential units. Now, we have to be very careful here that we're comparing like with like. So what we needed to do was to determine what building standards we were building the new developments to, and then we had to make sure that we were using the same standards to compare it with the existing North Quay building. So what we did was we went for the very highest environmental standards that are in large-scale contemporary use today. So the calculation for the new development on the Pentreath scheme used residential timber frame and passive house building standards. And so what we did when we did the comparison with North Quay was we built and reconfigured to the same standards. So we made sure we were comparing like with like. We went to a specialist architect. Archetype are an architectural practice that specialise in environmentally high standard development. And we asked them to review the carbon impact of the two options, change of use of the existing building or a new development on the site. Their conclusions were interesting. I won't read this. The third paragraph down is one of the key points that came out of it. There really isn't much difference between leaving the existing building up and refurbishing or a new eco development from a lifestyle perspective. The two options are much the same in terms of the carbon footprint impact of the two. There is a caveat on that if we put more onto the site, then new development is more carbon efficient per square metre than converting the existing building. And the swaying argument from my perspective was, if we build 56 units on this site, we then haven't got 16 more units that we would have had in the redevelopment, and we'll have to build those additional units on a greenfield site somewhere else. We need to maximise the value, maximise the number of units we deliver on our brownfield sites. So from a carbon perspective, the two solutions will be worst, the same. A new development may be better, and from a brownfield site usage, redevelopment will be better. So, assuming redevelopment's the preferable option, let's have a look at the scheme as it's come forward. I've got a few slides here which just give artist's impression of the scheme. So what we have here is taking out the existing North Quay building, and you're looking at the end of the development here. The square building on the right-hand side has a road behind it. So this block has roads both in front and behind of it, which you can see here from the waterfront, what the development looks like. So summaries of that scheme: environmentally friendly site with a very low carbon footprint. It gives us 72 units and 2 ground floor non-residential units. We've moved a long way in terms of pedestrianisation of the area. There's parking for the residents. We've reflected the historical character of the area. And the most important thing about this is to bringing into use this prime harbourside location. So we have North Quay. Why didn't we bring it forward earlier? If that was all that we were doing in this scheme, we could have brought this scheme forward 6 months ago, or perhaps earlier than that. What we've done is we've taken the opportunity to see what else we can deliver in Weymouth that's better for the town, that enhances the town further. So the next thing that I'd like to talk about is the former Weymouth Bowl site. Closed because of a leaking roof with no prospect of imminent opening. A lot of money needs to be spent on the building to redevelopment, and it's a conservation area. So we thought, what is it that we could do with this site? And what we'd like to bring forward is a second scheme, and that's the demolition of the bowling alley and production of a mixed use, partly residential, partly retail commercial, with 59 flats and 4 non-residential ground floor units. So this photo is looking at it from the west side, from the waterfront side. These shots are looking at it from the other side of the building, from the east side. What we've tried to do with this scheme, it's in a conservation area, so we've tried to develop it very sensitively using building styles that are currently in use in buildings in the area. Pastel palette brick. It's got a varied roof line, as has the rest of the development in that area. What we're trying to do is to bring back this segment of Weymouth and bring it back to life. So the before option you can see on the left-hand side is where we are now, with a totally sterile wall, unengaged to the public, and we turn that into a live, active street footprint. So it's a good use of valuable town centre land, mixed use, affordable housing. It's in keeping with the local buildings, and the parking requirement of residents is encapsulated in the scheme. So why did we bring them? Why bring them both together? Why not just bring them forward as 2 separate schemes? What we're proposing in this discussion, and this discussion's an engagement, it's not a consultation. We'll come to a formal consultation at the stage when we bring formal planning applications forward, but this is a public engagement and where we seek the views of the community. If we bring both of these schemes together, what we can do is that we can allocate affordable housing into the more appropriate location on the near side of the water, and use the far side of the water for other developments and higher value developments. And what we've done with the money that higher value development will allow us to generate is we've parlayed that back into a higher contribution for affordable housing. Council policy in this area is 35% affordable housing, but what we're bringing forward in this combined scheme is a 38% affordable housing component. So allowing us to develop more valuable property in North Quay allows us to deliver a higher proportion of the bowling alley site as affordable housing. So what would we want in terms of public engagement? At one level, simply comments on the scheme. Do you like the architecture? Is it the right things to do in each location? But we have some specific issues that we would like to explore in conjunction with the public. In each of the developments, there are units that are not residential. So there are 2 non-residential units in North Quay, and there are 4 non-residential units in the bowling alley. What we would like to know is what the community would like to use these units for. We could simply convert them into housing, and that would generate more accommodation and more income for Dorset. But we foresee demand from the community for doing other things with them. Perhaps people would want retail units or restaurants or museums or other entertainment venues. And what we're seeking to do is to find the best uses for those buildings, and we'll embed that in the planning proposals that we finally come forward with. So please comment. We'd welcome engagement from the public. We'd welcome anything that anybody has to say. And so we're launching a public engagement, because as I say, we're going to consult later. This is an engagement now to draw up the plans. For 4 weeks, we would welcome people's comments, and we look forward to bringing forward more formal proposals when we've listened to and engaged with the public about what people want for the site. Thank you.